This for the president will now shift to Wisconsin, we just heard, as he heads to Madison area tomorrow for his first appearance coming off tonight's address to the country. The president will speak at the Laborers Union Training Center, highlighting his jobs and economic plans. It's his first visit to Wisconsin since the midterm election. Jason Zimmerman live outside the site of tomorrow's event in Dane County with a preview of what to expect. Jason.
Cami, this is the second year in a row that Wisconsin is the first stop for the president after giving his State of the Union address. You might remember last year he spoke at UW-Superior. Tonight, preparations are already underway for the president's arrival on Wednesday morning inside the building that you see right behind me. For many people in Wisconsin, it might seem like deja vu as President Biden comes here again to push the agenda highlighted during his State of the Union address Tuesday, specifically focusing on the economy. The governor expected to be on hand.
We're looking forward to it. It's an honor for us to welcome him there, and so it'll be good. It'll be a good chance for him to amplify his message that he's going to be giving.
Last year, the president also visiting Wisconsin following his address with a trip to UW-Superior, attempting to hype support for the infrastructure bill. Republicans say whatever his message is Wednesday, a lot of independent voters are not buying it.
One thing you see consistently in the polling with the president is that people get it. He's trying to talk them into something that's not there, but they have felt it on gas prices, on natural gas prices, at the grocery store. Try to go buy a dozen eggs these days.
However, state Democrats point the finger right back at Republicans and the policies of former President Donald Trump.
I know that he's going to be focused on this really powerful economic message. If you look at what was happening in the U.S. economy when Joe Biden became president, it was in free fall. There were so many people out of work with the COVID pandemic. And under President Biden, first folks got their vaccinations, and then we've got these tremendous investments in public support, in supporting the creation of opportunities.
Senator Tammy Baldwin telling me tonight that she won't be able to make it to the event tomorrow because of a commitment in D.C. However, the Madison mayor will be here and a number of other prominent state Democrats as well. Of course, we'll have coverage throughout the day, both on air and online. Reporting live in DeForest, Jason Zimmerman, Action 2 News.